Wow, what a way to start, right? The Roman Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote this more than 2,000 years ago. And what did he mean by that? Well, he meant that sometimes just the simple act of getting through the day, of facing whatever life throws at you, that in itself is an act of incredible bravery. All right, so let's dive into this. Courage. We all think we know what it is. We see it in movies, right? The heroes on the battlefield, the fearless leaders. But honestly, that picture can be really intimidating and kind of misleading. So in this explainer, we're going to tear down the idea of courage, strip away all the myths, and build a brand new, way more practical understanding of how to find it, and more importantly, how to actually use it in our own lives. So here's our game plan. First, we are going to bust a huge common myth about what courage really is. Then we'll see what some of the greatest minds in history had to say about it. After that, we'll take a hard look at why always playing it safe can be so damaging. And then we get to the good stuff, a practical toolkit you can use to build your own courage. And finally, we're going to uncover a surprising truth, that courage is rarely a solo mission. Okay, first things first. We all have this image in our heads of courage, right? Maybe it's a Spartan warrior, someone who is totally, completely unafraid. But here's the deal. This idea that you have to be fearless to be brave, it's not just wrong, it's actually really unhelpful. It sets this impossible standard that none of us can ever live up to. Just look at this contrast. The myth tells us we have to somehow get rid of fear, but the reality is so much more achievable and so much more freeing. Courage is not about not feeling fear. It's about feeling that fear, looking it right in the eye, and deciding that something else is more important. You know, a courageous person and a cowardly person can feel the exact same terror. The only difference is what they do next. So this is the definition we're going to run with. And notice the most important word in there, willingness. This is a game changer. It means courage isn't some magical quality you're either born with or you're not. Nope, it's a choice. It's a decision to lean into the discomfort because something on the other side matters more. And that means it's a practical skill that absolutely anyone can develop. With that new definition locked in, let's see how this idea has been kicked around throughout history. I mean, courage is definitely not a new concept. Philosophers have been wrestling with it for centuries, and their insights really add some incredible depth to all of this. We're going to look at 4 really distinct takes on it. For the Stoics, courage was a practical tool for just living a good life. For a guy like Nietzsche, it was the raw power you needed to become your true self. For Buddhists, it's all about the bravery to face suffering head-on. And for the Cynics, well, for them, it was about a radical kind of freedom from what other people think. For the Stoics, the main goal was something called eudaimonia. Now, that's just a fancy Greek word for flourishing, basically living your best possible life. And to do that, courage wasn't just for the battlefield. It was an everyday thing. It was the endurance to get through tough times and the confidence to do the right thing, even when it was the hard thing. For them, courage is kind of like the master virtue that lets you use all the others, like justice and wisdom, when things get tough. Now, Nietzsche, he had a much more intense take. He believed we all have to create our own values instead of just accepting what society tells us. And to do that, well, it takes a massive amount of courage to break away from what he called the herd mentality. His ideal was the Übermensch, or overmen. And no, he wasn't talking about a superhero. He meant a person who has the guts to become the architect of their own soul. For Nietzsche, courage is literally the engine that drives that self-creation. And now for the Buddhist view. A lot of people see Buddhist monks as kind of escaping the world. But from their perspective, the truly courageous act is to do the exact opposite, to turn around and confront it. It's about choosing to face the pain and suffering of what they call samsara, this endless cycle driven by desire, so you can overcome it. True bravery, from this point of view, is looking at reality in all its harshness and not turning away. Okay, so we've got a handle on what courage is, but why is it so critical? Because the alternative, living a life where you're always choosing comfort, always avoiding fear, that isn't a free ride. It comes with a steep and often hidden price tag. This idea is so important. We often think that by dodging a difficult conversation or passing up a risky opportunity, we're just keeping ourselves safe. We see it as a neutral choice, but it's not. It's a massive mistake to think that. Every single time we choose not to do something out of fear, there's a consequence. And here they are. These are the prices we pay. When we consistently choose comfort over courage, we're teaching ourselves,
over and over that we can't handle things. It slowly eats away at our self-esteem. And over time, all those missed chances, all those doors we didn't walk through, they pile up and turn into a life of what-ifs, a deep, painful regret for the person we know we could have become.
Think about it like this. Imagine for a second that you're on your deathbed looking back over your life. Which decisions do you think you'd regret more? The times you tried something and failed, or the times you were too afraid to even try in the first place? Man, that thought experiment just cuts through all the noise, doesn't it? It shows you what really matters and why it's so urgent to act now, while you still have tomorrows.
So how do we actually do this? How do we turn all this understanding into action? Because knowing about courage is one thing, but actually building it is another. The good news is, courage is like a muscle. It can be trained. And here are 4 powerful tools for your inner gym.
First, you have to find your why. You need a reason that's bigger and more compelling than your fear. Second, you have to change your relationship with fear. Start seeing it as information, not a stop sign. It's just data. Listen to it, but don't let it be the one driving the car. Third, practice being uncomfortable. Deliberately. Start small. Talk to a stranger. Take a cold shower. Just build up your tolerance. And finally, and this one is a big one, you have to overcome shame. To really nail down that last point, check out this quick story from ancient Greece. This guy, Zeno, who would later found the whole school of Stoicism, was studying under a philosopher named Cretes. And Cretes saw that Zeno was completely paralyzed by his fear of what other people thought. So he gives him this bizarre assignment. Take this pot of lentil soup, which was considered poor people's food, and just carry it through the crowded city center.
As you can imagine, Zeno was mortified. He's trying to hide the pot under his cloak. His face is bright red with embarrassment. So Cretes sees his student struggling, walks right up to him, and without saying a word, just smashes the pot with his walking stick. It shatters everywhere, and now Zeno is covered in soup.
Humiliated, Zeno just turns and runs. And as he's fleeing, Cretes yells after him, "Why are you running away? Nothing terrible has happened to you." And that was the whole lesson. His absolute worst fear, public humiliation, came true. And he survived. He was fine. It proved that the opinions of the crowd were just noise. True freedom and true courage comes when you stop letting the fear of what others think control your life. And now for our final section. And honestly, this might be the most important one of all. We've talked a lot about all this inner work, but we've been missing a huge piece of the puzzle. We tend to think of a courageous person as some kind of lone wolf, right? But the reality is the complete opposite. This quote from Sinek just flips the whole script. Courage isn't just some internal resource that we have to summon up all on our own. A lot of the time, it's something we get from the outside, from the people who have our backs. Sinek uses this absolutely perfect analogy. Why is a trapeze artist willing to try a brand new, terrifying trick? It's not because they're fearless. No way. It's because they have a safety net. They know that if they fall, they're going to be caught. Well, in our lives, our relationships, our friends, our family, our mentors, they are our safety net. So, building courage is also about building your community. It's about investing your time and energy to nurture those relationships. I mean, when you ask real heroes why they did something so brave, they almost always say the same thing, because they would have done it for me. Their courage came from the trust and support of their team. And so we end with this. Courage isn't some grand one-time act. It's a series of small choices made every single day. It's making that call you've been avoiding. It's speaking up in a meeting. It's being honest when it would be easier to lie. It's choosing to act despite the fear. So looking at your own life, with your own safety net in place, what is one courageous choice you can make today?